this bond, this relationship that gave him sanity and safety. This represents for him being heard, being seen, being safe, and having his own place in a world of chaos. That is everything, and that is where the trauma healing exists, and that is irreplaceable. You cannot replace that with something that is not human. Hey, pod people. Welcome to this week's episode of Why Do People Do That? So we are here today to talk to you about why you should not replace your therapist with AI.
Why would people do that?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Maybe we can start there. I mean, people really, we should not have to have this conversation with you.
Bad idea.
This is ridiculous. But let's start with your question. I think that's a good place to start.
Why would people do that?
What do you think? Why do people feel like they want AI to be their therapist?
I think the convenience of it, being able to kind of just ask it random questions and, whenever you're feeling bad about yourself, I think the access to it would probably be appealing for some people. I think people are going to try to end up using it as a therapist, not understanding what therapy is and just be kind of asking questions that should really be discussed in therapy.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about access, what comes to mind for me is that instant gratification, right? That immediate feel better. And I think that's sort of where we're at as a society, right? Because of technology and the leaps and bounds it's made just over the last few years, especially since COVID, and we've become so used to the instant gratification of hop on a Zoom, hop on FaceTime, hop on this. Let's just look things up. I get search,
annoyed when it takes
Google.
a second for something to load and it's spinning and you're like, what is this?
Right. Oh my gosh. I know. And God forbid, you have a bad signal and you just can't get through at all to your phone. And it's oh my God, I can't find out the answer immediately. Right. So we're definitely in an age of instant gratification.
Yeah.
And because we're in an age of instant gratification, I think there's a lot of difficulty regulating going on. I think people in general are having a hard time really processing their feelings, sitting with difficult emotions, learning what they need to do for themselves to kind of soothe themselves and understand themselves and be okay. And so if you can have an immediate answer or an immediate resolve to an issue or a problem that you're having, and somebody can answer for you what to do, right? Why not?
Yeah.
Right? I can just go on my phone and ask it something and it's going to help me.
Yeah. It's interesting that you are saying, having a difficulty sitting with your emotions and just being with those feelings. It happens all the time where I work in rehab. They have these really big emotions and they don't have their cell phones. There's very limited access. There's 2 of the last remaining payphones in Nassau County. They have to wait for someone to get all, put the quarters in to call someone, and to watch people kind of really not be able to kind of manage that. They do kind of start spinning out and they don't know what to do. It's no, we're going to learn healthy coping skills. Let's go walking around. Here's a coloring book. Let's try talking about it. Let's, why don't you go to the exercise room? Go, build these healthy ways to manage those feelings.
Do you think a lot of it does have to do with their technology addiction in the first place? That they are now standing on this line waiting for a payphone and they don't have instant access to a real or a person?
Yep. I think that's a big part of it, but just not being sure, not being comfortable sitting with emotion. I mean, these are people coming in for substance use disorder. So they're kind of medicating their feelings. So now being forced to look at them and not have an instant way to kind of manage it is hard.
It's really concerning because I feel as a society, we're sort of evolving into this place of, it was one thing to, have a cell phone on you all the time so that you can always call somebody, and they would have one on them too, and you would have access to them. And then it evolved into texting, which then evolved into social media. And so now it's not just calling or texting, but it's also seeing where people are, what they're up to and what they're doing, and showing them where you are and what you're doing. And then it evolved to, video conferencing and FaceTimes and Zooms and whatnot. And we go further and further from, like in-person interaction or meetings, because it's just easier, faster, and more convenient to do a Zoom. I find that even professionally, even business-wise, a lot of the meetings that I have that just a few years ago, never in a million years would have been through tech or on Zoom or whatever. Zoom wasn't even a thing before 2020, really. Now everything is. It's almost like, oh, you want us to meet in person?
Why would we do that?
Why would we do that?
I have to leave my house. I have to leave the office.
And so I feel like we are snowballing into this realm of nothing is enough. It's like, we need it faster. We need it quicker. We need faster access, quicker access, more convenient access.
Yep, immediate.
Like Google's not even good enough anymore. I never thought something would replace Google. I was like, what in the world could ever be better than Google? I don't even Google shit anymore.
What do you do?
I ChatGPT everything.
Really?
You don't?
I don't.
Well, you're missing out. It's like a more clear and precise answer to your question. So like if you Google something, now like it will come up with like websites and articles and things to read.
But there is like an AI like generic response to things, and then it will have like,
and then
the
it will
cited
give
articles.
you right.
Yep.
ChatGPT just gives you the answer. You don't even have to read through the stuff that Google is giving you anymore. Right? So it's we're just becoming dumber and dumber and less motivated and lazier. We don't want to read. We don't want to look up. We just want instant, right? And so, in 2020, our industry took a turn.
Yeah.
And it was a big turn because what I know for me, and it might be similar for you, but maybe a little bit different because you are working at a rehab where people, their bodies actually have to be there. They can't do
inpatient. Yep.
virtual rehab. It is inpatient. But for me, in private practice, doing outpatient psychotherapy, just, your basic anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD, things like that. Before 2020, there was really no such thing as virtual therapy. It was always in person. Every once in a while, I would have a patient say to me, it's going to be really hard for me to get there today because of X, Y, and Z. Could we just do a phone session? And they wouldn't ask for a Zoom because that wasn't even a thing.
Wasn't a thing.
No. It was, can we do a phone session? And for me, it was an absolutely not. I felt like it was detrimental to the treatment. I felt like you get so much more out of an in-person session.
Yeah.
That you're doing yourself a disservice by having a phone session, because now you're going to have a conversation with me about things that are coming up for you over a phone call, and you're going to miss out on the opportunity to have that in-person, face-to-face energy together in the room interaction that is so profound and so much better, so much more authentic than a phone session. I can't see your body language. I can't see your facial expression. There's so many things you're missing over the phone. And so I felt like it was almost like damaging. And I would say, unless this is a crisis, you're best to just leave it till next session or reschedule for another day.
Wow.
Rather than do a phone session. I absolutely would not do phone sessions with people unless the person was legitimately in crisis. That was it. That was the only time I would get on the phone with the patient. I was like, is this an emergency? Is this a crisis? Are you safe? Yeah, I'm totally fine. Just, working late. Okay, let's reschedule then. Because it's so important to be in the room together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then
Zoom came along.
2020 comes around, COVID. And people were afraid to be in rooms with people. I get it. It was a scary time. And so virtual therapy became the only way
to
do therapy. And so, of course, especially during this time of crisis and trauma and stress.
Yeah, the need for therapy was going to increase.
Yeah, of course. It snowballed, it expanded, and we had to find creative ways to meet the need and to meet the crisis. And so I opened myself up, and all the therapists did. And insurance companies, for the first time ever, were willing to cover virtual sessions, which before they would not do, right? And it was supposed to be temporary. We'll cover this temporarily until things can go back to normal, right? Here we are, 5 years later, and as if the virtual therapy that has really become a norm and a standard isn't bad enough.
Now it's being replaced by a bot.
Yes. So let's just start very briefly by talking about why virtual therapy isn't the number one go-to or way to do therapy. Let's talk about what we're missing there.
Well, you were just saying that. I mean, being able to kind of read someone's body language and respond to facial expression and tone and just that in-person, the feeling, the energy you're going to get from being in a room with another person.
Yeah. I mean, it could be something as subtle as I have a couple in the room and they're sitting with their legs like this. You know, you're like this, I'm like this, and we're facing each other as opposed to sitting like this. And now on a screen, when you only have from here up, you can't see how the people are sitting. You can't see that the husband might have put his hand on his wife's leg and started rubbing it, or that he's leaned over to grab a tissue and is now handing a tissue to his wife. You can't see that the person's legs might be shaking, or that they might be fidgeting their feet, or that when they've sat on your couch, they've picked up a pillow and placed it on their lap and held their arms around it like this, as if to hug it, to keep themselves safe hidden and safe and secure. It's comforting. And why are all these things important?
Because that's really what the work is.
It is some of the most important parts of the work. It's not just about what you're coming in and saying with your words. It's about, when I'm sitting with a patient, it's about what they're showing me through their body. I can see that they're in pain physically sometimes. I can see that they're stressed or pressured. I can see that they're uncomfortable. I can see that they're clenching their fists. I can see that they're picking their nails or their skin. I can see that they're fidgeting with something. I can see and sometimes hear and smell things.
That's disturbing.
Good or bad, but it's part of the work that you cannot ever know
on a screen. Yep.
On a screen. There are definitely facial expressions that can't be seen or detected through a screen. I mean, it's endless. We can go on and on and on about it. But I think for me, that is really like the smallest piece of it. Some of it, and really a lot of it, not even some of it, a lot of it, it's not some and a lot, it's a lot. A lot of it is what the room represents, the safety of the room. Some of the work I do with my patients, especially those who have a hard time with emotional regulation or who can't sit with big emotions, which is a lot of people, especially these days, people who have a history of trauma or severe stress. It's really hard for them to sit with their feelings, and we will do grounding exercises. And sometimes we will do an exercise called container, where we will really visualize the feelings or the thoughts or the memories that are coming up for them in the room, and we will put it in a container, and that container will live someplace in the room. How are you doing that virtually? How are you grounding? How are you creating what psychodynamic therapists like to call the holding environment? And for me, the way I work, without the holding environment, there is no work. There is no work. It's all on the surface. And so I don't want to say that there's no time or place for virtual therapy. I don't want to say it's all bad. I know that for some people, and I do want to give merit to this and honor this, for some people, getting to a therapist in person is very difficult or impossible. Mm-hmm. In rural areas, sometimes there is no in-person therapist around. Sometimes transportation is an issue, access.
Childcare, yep. There are
all of
circumstances that
absolutely
it would be appropriate for.
Absolutely.
And we had spoken before too. I mean, having an in-person relationship with a therapist that's already built and established, and having the occasional Zoom session because of, I don't have childcare, I don't have transportation, something came up, I'm going to be stuck at work, but I can get away for an hour to do this. I just can't make it to you. Like those in-between sessions, I think, there would be appropriate, but to have an entire online therapy relationship really misses so much.
Yeah, it really, really does. And again, if you're out there and you're listening and virtual is the only way for you, it's okay. It is absolutely better than nothing. But if you can get in person, it is so important. But to bring us to the purpose of our topic today, I'm not here to bash virtual therapy, even though I really do think in person is so much more effective. The bot, the AI therapy. So let's talk about that. I mean, when we think about why somebody wants to do virtual therapy, we understand it. But I want to understand why somebody wants their therapist to not be a real person. Right? So when that person goes to ask ChatGPT or some other AI version of whatever, I don't even know what the different versions are. Why is it acceptable? Why is it helpful? Why do we believe that AI can do the same thing that a human being can do?
I could see preferring that or thinking that might be better if there's shame involved. If there's, guilt and shame and I don't feel comfortable. I can't talk about this with a real person. So I'm going to go speak to a bot about it. See what the bot has to say. Okay.
So I think I'm so happy you brought that up. I'm very excited. Very excited about that.
Okay.
So
talk to me.
Let's unpack that. So let's unpack what it means for the person who needs to talk about something that carries so much shame for them. And what happens for this person in treatment, in therapy, in the process of processing that does bring themselves to the room, that does sit themselves in front of another human being, that does build the holding environment, the trust, the safe space, and does bring themselves to a point where they can talk about something that triggers enormous shame for them, versus the person that talks to themselves through their phone.
Is there a question there?
Yeah.
I missed that.
What do you think the person going to the human being might get that the person talking to themselves through the phone is not getting?
They're going to get an actual response, like a personal response. A bot is going to have the same answer to everyone that kind of brings that problem to them.
It's more than that. They are going to get an actual response, but in their brain, they're thinking, I'm going to get a response from the phone and I don't have to be embarrassed. There is repair. There is healing.
In being embarrassed.
In being embarrassed, right? That's what it's about. If you are going to talk to the bot that you don't have to be embarrassed about, you get to skip around sitting with distress, sitting with and tolerating a difficult emotion. You're avoiding. You're allowing yourself to go deeper into the avoidance of. And then you miss out on having what we call in therapy the corrective experience. So let's say, for example, let's make up a scenario. So-and-so comes into therapy and this person is really ashamed because, give me something. What'd they do?
Oh, see, mine's kind of creepy.
I don't care.
First thing coming to my head is like having, sexual feelings about a child, or we're dealing with something.
Pedophilia.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great example. So I had actually a patient. It wasn't my patient. It was a patient in the practice who was seeing a therapist a gazillion years ago. And he carried an enormous amount of shame. Okay. Because he did not ever act on this at all, right? He wasn't a pedophile, but he was like attracted to younger girls or girls that looked younger, like a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old. So he would never hit on the girl or do anything with the girl, but he found himself fantasizing about and feeling attracted to these girls. And he was beyond embarrassed and ashamed. And he came into therapy, and it took him about, I would say, 6 to 9 months, around close to a year,
before he felt safe enough to even share that.
Be able to tell his therapist that this is how he was feeling. And so what was happening there was he was coming into the room and he was thinking in his mind about what he wanted to talk about, and he was processing. And he was thinking and he was processing and he was thinking and he was processing. And through the act of thinking and processing in that safe room and within that safe relationship, he started to master the idea of what his thoughts were and what he was feeling and what it might feel like to share this with another person. And then finally one day he came out with it and he said, I need to tell you something I've never told you. And in the sharing, there was body language, right? It was, like going like this and covering his mouth and looking away and not making eye contact. And the therapist was able to mirror these acts, like literally going like this and saying, I'm sensing that this is hard for you to tell me, right? An AI bot can't see that.
Yeah.
The AI bot isn't going to say, I'm sensing this is difficult for you. So right then and there, the therapist is able to recognize the shame. And the therapist is able to say to the patient, I'm sensing this is hard for you to talk about. And let's pause for a moment. Before you tell me what it is that's hard for you to tell me, I wonder if we could process what makes it hard. And the reality is, what made it hard was almost more important than talking about the actual thing. And so in processing what made it hard, he was able to talk about his shame and his embarrassment and feeling weird and feeling different and feeling like a freak. Those were his words. I feel like a freak. And the therapist said, tell me more about feeling like a freak. And the patient was able to delve into a whole history of being bullied, feeling different, feeling less than, feeling made fun of. And,
so all of that work was going on before he even disclosed his
I like
secret.
to look at 14-year-old girls. Mm-hmm. Right. And so what the therapist was able to work through with him through several sessions was that there was an enormous amount of shame involved in the fact that he was attracted to these girls, because he came from a history of shame. And he came from a history of shame because of the bullying. But the reality is the bullying started when he was 14. So there was stunted growth there. He was still a 14-year-old kid who did not grow and flourish emotionally and cognitively because of the trauma of the bullying that went on at that time, which from what I understand was severe. It was really bad stuff that was going on. And we don't have to get into all the details of that, but it was bad stuff that was going on. And so that's where his growth was stunted. So a lot of his shame was really more about how, that there was this 14-year-old part of him that was showing up and feeling so ashamed of himself. And the fact that he was attracted to 14-year-old girls is because he never emotionally grew past being 14. He did not feel like a grown man. And he was a grown man.
Physically, but not.
Physically and chronologically, but emotionally he was not. And so he did not feel like he would be a good match for a woman his age in his 30s. He just felt like I'm not developed enough. I'm not there. I don't have the maturity. And a 30-something-year-old woman isn't going to want me, right? This lack of self-worth, this lack of self-esteem, and, his ability to work through all of this came from the nuance of that relationship with that therapist, that the therapist was able to see his physical shame, that he actually had the opportunity to, for 9 months, come into a room and play out through his head the idea of talking about this. So if he did not have that relationship with that therapist and he was not coming into the room and he literally just conveniently and impulsively picked up his phone and was like, hey, AI, is it weird that I like 14-year-old girls? What would AI say to him?
I don't even know.
Let's guess. What do you think AI would say to this guy who knows nothing about this guy and isn't even human?
Yeah, I don't even know what the right bot answer would be.
There is no right answer. That's the point. But that bot is probably going to say I bet you all of our pod people at home now are like going on their ChatGPT to ask it.
I can't wait to go and ask it because now I'm super curious.
It would probably say something like, pedophilia is against the law. You need to be careful because blah, 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 blah. Right? My guess.
Which then makes him feel even more guilt and shame.
Yes.
And furthers that. And I'm a freak in that belief. And
yeah,
going to alienate him and he's going to isolate and it's spiral further down.
Probably going to have a very black and white kind of discussion about pedophilia and what that means. And it might give a definition of it. And it might give, some psychoeducational responses for why someone might be attracted to children when they're an adult. But is that healing going to take place?
Of course not.
Because the reality is what really helped this guy more than anything is the fact that this therapist accepted him.
Didn't judge. Yep.
He was a human being who said, tell me more about that. Who wasn't horrified, who wasn't shocked, who didn't call him a pedophile, who didn't call him names, right? And when he said, am I a pedophile? The therapist said, what does it mean to be a pedophile? What does it mean to you? What is your definition of it? Is that what you think you are? Right? A bot is not going to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And my guess, I think the bot would make it worse.
Yeah.
Right? Not only would it make it worse, but it would completely miss the opportunity to heal the old trauma. I will bet you $1 million that old trauma wouldn't even come up in the conversation because it would be very present. It would be very here and now. There would be no exploring. There would be no digging. There would be no going backwards to understand the why.
It would hopefully, be kind of solution focused and working on future and maybe not acting on those feelings or.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not addressing the why.
But the solution focused work only goes so far, right? I'm not going to say that solution focused is a bad thing or that there isn't merit to it or that isn't helpful to learn some tools and some skills. But you're missing the opportunity for the deeper work. And that's where the real healing is, right? And so another piece that is really important to consider is one of the biggest parts of the work is what we call transference. So for those of you that don't know what transference is, which is totally normal unless you're really a therapist or you have gone to therapy and really done your research, most people don't know what transference is, and that's okay. But transference is, in layman's terms, in simplest terms, it is the healing that takes place through the relationship you have with your therapist by having the therapist play a role or play a part that needs healing or that needs repair or that needs reenacting. So, for example, if you had a bad relationship with your father, say you had a narcissistic verbally abusive or emotionally abusive father, who was always putting you down and criticizing you and wasn't good to you and was really cold and uncaring, you might come into therapy and unknowingly, this is not intentional, this is all subconscious stuff. Mm-hmm. You will subconsciously make the therapist that figure.
Yes.
And use the relationship you develop with the therapist for healing and repair.
To try to repair that relationship with your father.
Yeah. So there will be reenacting going on. So there might be, like, for example, there might be like, like I'm thinking about a time a long time ago when there was a blizzard and I couldn't get to the office. And this is before Zoom. This is way before COVID. Way before COVID. This is a very long time ago. There was a blizzard and I couldn't get to the office. I lived too far. And most of the therapists couldn't get to the office. So I canceled all my patients for the day and the office ended up closing early and whatever. My patient was very angry that I did not brave the storm and get myself to the office because she needed me and I should have been there for her. So needless to say, she came from a background, a childhood where she had a very cold mother who did not show up for her at all. There was no father in the picture. There was just mom who was not present. I think there may have been some substance use. Mom was kind of in and out. Sometimes she had to stay with family members. It was, traumatic childhood and not a lot of care from mom directly and a lot of disappointment. And so
she needed you to be that reparative,
always showing up and whatever.
Being there for her.
Yep. So me taking care of myself by not braving the storm and risking my own life to get to the office on a day that she really was looking forward to the session and she needed me and she lived 2 blocks away. So walking to the office was, not
a big deal.
No big feat for her. Right. But for me, it was like a 40-minute drive. And so,
and she took that personally.
She took it personally because the reenactment of being able to be angry with me and being able to be disappointed in me and acting out. And she acted out, boy. She, threatened to kill herself. She wrote a nasty letter. She called saying that she felt like she was going to harm herself and left a message for the answering service. The answering service reached out to me. I called her back and she left this outgoing message on her answering machine, basically like saying
retro.
She was going to harm herself. And so, of course, I had to call 911. I had to send them to her house. They broke her door down. She wasn't there because she was at the neighbor's house. Had no intentions of really hurting herself, but wanted to see what I would do.
If you were going to respond.
She was testing me. She was acting out. So the acting out and the reenactment of, being this angry, needy child who was disappointed was part of the healing, right? So the following week, I come into the office and she comes into session and I'm like, let's talk about what happened last week, right? You're not getting that with a bot.
No.
That's not happening with a bot. And so is it important that you be able to have these scenarios in your therapy?
That's what the real work is.
There's no therapy without it.
Yeah.
It's not therapy. It's a conversation with a bot.
Yep.
You're asking your
potentially
phone.
Problem solving.
It's self-help. It's not even good self-help, but it's like bad self-help, right? Because the AI is going to cater to exactly what you're asking it for. So it's not even like you're reading a self-help book that was written by a licensed, seasoned, experienced professional that has thought about all the different nuances of what can go on with a human being. Even that would be better. Right? So you are missing the biggest, most important, most vital part of the work, the relationship, the corrective experience, the transference, There is no transference with a not real person.
There couldn't be.
There can't be.
Yeah.
It's impossible, right? It's impossible, right? So just this morning, I had a session with a patient, and she might watch this and be like, oh my God, you're talking about me. But that's okay. She won't care. I've been seeing her for a lifetime, like literally. And, you know, she said to me, I don't know where I would be without you. And it's not me, right? I can't say it's me. I'm so great and I'm so wonderful and I've done so much for her. And she might disagree, and that's okay. It's the relationship.
Yes.
It's the relationship.
But
because
it is what you bring to the relationship and to the work with her. So you can take some credit.
I can, yes. Because I'm not a sociopath. I care about people. But, you know, there was a childhood there where there was difficulty and there was neglect and there was narcissism in the parenting. And, you know, it was tough. It was a tough, unsafe world for her. And although she's made leaps and bounds and come, you know, a hell of a long way, there are still triggers all the time, all around her. And so she does still utilize, you know, the treatment and the therapy and the relationship to ground herself and to bounce ideas and to say, you know, this is, and I can't believe this still triggers me. And so, you know, we talked a bit about her childhood, and it's really interesting because she's now an adult, but yet I knew her when she was a child. So there's something really special in that like I can remember some things from her childhood that she doesn't even remember because I was an adult going through it at the time. And we talked a little bit about some of the things she went through with one of her parents. And, you know, I brought up some of the things that I remember her saying to me and some of the things that were hard for her. And she really reflected on how alone she felt. And, you know, what made all of the difference for her was that she had some place to go and a human being to talk to that wasn't a narcissist and that wasn't letting her down and that wasn't disappointing her. Something, a place, a person that was predictable and consistent. And it was really more the predictability and the consistency of the relationship that really was in the healing and really brought her to this place in her life, because it really could have gone in so many different places. There were different paths she could have gone down, and she could have gone down a road of self-harm and, self-destruction. And that's kind of where she was headed when I first met her as an adolescent. And she's doing great and has a really healthy, amazing husband and relationship. And she's doing amazing. And I can tell you with full certainty that wouldn't be the case if she did not have therapy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely not.
Right. And that is not
but you
something
spoke to the predictability and the consistency. And I'm just kind of thinking about, people sort of isolative and loners who aren't, sharing with friends, who aren't, going to go to a therapist, having that bot and having that sort of delusional almost relationship with a computer and with an AI figment.
So do we think that that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, I don't think that's a good thing at all.
Yeah. It's dangerous.
But you wonder, what kind of damage that can really do. And we were talking before about like certain scenarios, like, the psychotic patient, like having, talking to a bot about the voices and like having the bot validate them and make them even more paranoid, and how much more damage that can do.
It's already happening. They're talking about AI psychosis because, the bot, the AI therapist, doesn't know when the psychotic patient comes to them and says, somebody's chasing me. They're not like, okay, let's process this. Let's
tell me more about that. Yep.
Yeah. They're just like, oh, well, this is what you can do.
You should call the police.
Right. It's going to bring them deeper into the delusion for sure. And it already has. It's proven to have already done that. Which is dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So this is beyond just the fact that you're missing the opportunity.
It's not helpful. It's
be
beyond
helpful.
non-helpful to
It's
being
harmful.
dangerous.
Right. So it's both not helpful and harmful at the same time.
Dangerous.
It's harmful and dangerous and not helpful. Right. So you're missing the opportunity for healing and growth. And you are potentially really getting guidance that is dangerous
and further damaging
and misleading. It also can become confusing to people what to expect from real people when you become so used to interacting with something that is pretending to be a people but isn't a people, right? It's like this false misconception or idea of what relationships are, right? How do we really know how to really fully and in a healthy way know what to expect of a relationship when we can so easily delusionally fall into these expectations of what a bot can do for us?
Yeah.
Right. Well, the bot validates me. The bot says nice things to me. The bot doesn't care when I say assy things to it. How come you are offended? Right. Especially for young people whose brains are still developing and whose social skills are still developing, right? They are not going to learn.
They're already having a hard time, interacting with humans and making eye contact and small talk and social interactions.
Oh my gosh.
And so many things that are just being lost.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's it's so bad. It's all bad. I mean, it's really dangerous. You know, I was reading just the other day, unfortunately, that they had actually did a test where they were like pretending to be like an adolescent, like a 13 or 14-year-old girl or something like that, talking about having suicidal ideation. And they just kept talking and they kept going. And eventually the AI therapist was actually giving the fake child, ways to kill herself.
That's terrifying.
Right. Because it's not a person.
Yeah.
It doesn't know what it's doing. Right. Like if you,
and I think it does start to kind of learn responses from you and kind of it changes and it almost gives you what you want. So I could see wearing it down to like just eventually giving those instructions.
Right. And just think about like what that does to the human psyche when you are engaged in this relationship with someone, a fake someone that starts to feel real to you, that does give you whatever you want.
Yeah. It puts unrealistic expectations on any relationship ever.
Right.
Like my bot doesn't fight with me.
Right. My bot doesn't get offended when I say this or that.
Or call me out on my shit.
Right. So it encourages isolation, right? It sets up, unrealistic expectations of other, right? We are going to, for the younger people, they're not going to learn how to interact and socialize appropriately. And for people who have learned how to do that, they're going to unlearn it. Right? It's become too easy and too convenient, right? So we're going to step outside of therapy for a minute, right? AI, we're going to forget how to write a paper. We're going to forget how to write a response to something.
I had to write a request to the court and AI did it for me in a way that is vastly better than I could have ever done it. Like, I value our relationship and would like to continue to work to serve the clients we share. Like, it was nothing I could have written. I mean, it went on and on, but
I guess the question is that important? Is it important that things be written so perfectly that it's just like, oh, look at how perfect this email is, or look at how perfect this outline is, or look at how perfect this discussion post is, instead of it just being authentic and human and real?
I think there's a time and a place for that. Maybe not perfect, but that, well-written gets my point across in a way that I might have struggled to do. And, being able to kind of say something, ask for our needs in a way that was not offensive. Like, I don't want to do your stupid treatment reports every week. They're a waste of time. And, it phrased it in a way that was not going to offend and alienate me from the court.
I hear that. And but here's what worries me, right? Because I know that a lot I'm guilty of it myself, and a lot of my therapists are using it too. We'll all use AI to write notes. It's HIPAA compliant. We're not putting a patient's name or anything. It's just very benign. Like I just had a session with a patient.
29-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about XYZ. Please write me a therapeutic progress note that, meets medical necessity for blah, 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 blah. And we use this modality and blah, blah, blah. And it will write it out in a way that, is going to be compliant.
Yep.
With what insurance companies are looking for, meet an audit, and the New York State Education Department will like it. But like, what are we missing when we talk about because our brains are always developing, for a lifetime, until the day that we die. If we live to be 100, right? We're always developing. Human development doesn't just stop when we turn into adults at 25. It keeps going, and what are we doing to our brains? What are we doing to ourselves as human if we're not engaging in the writing? So even though writing the progress note is tedious and annoying, right? If I sit down to write the note, does it force
potentially going to get something that you might not have thought about during the session?
It's forcing you to process the process. You're processing the session. You're processing what happened with the patient. You're thinking about the session, and it's going to make you a better therapist. It's going to help you understand the process that's going on. And if you rob yourself of that opportunity, you're not growing and developing the same way you could grow and develop as a professional.
Who writes their own notes.
Who writes their own notes. Because even though we think the notes are annoying, and they are, we do get something out of it, and I worry about like what happens to our brains as we continue in humanity if we are no longer, like there's a process when we are actually taking pen to paper.
Yeah.
Like even pen to paper as opposed to typing, right? There's something about the written language, the written word that actually commits things to memory that does not get committed to memory when we're not writing it down. And now we're not typing it anymore either.
I had that conversation with my daughter, like flashcards, like old school on index cards, the flashcards, like making her write them. And she's like, but there's a Quizlet for it. Like, I don't know what a Quizlet is, but it's, it's virtual flashcards. And like, you just click and it's the front and the back. And I'm like, no, you were going to write them with a pen on the cards and physically go so we can put them in piles, the ones the ones you don't. And, she kind of laughs at me, but could at least acknowledge that like the act of writing it out, did help her remember some of the stuff.
Yes. Yes. I was actually reading, and this is kind of going off topic a little bit, but it's on topic. I was doing a little research into like the COVID babies that are like coming in now to like kindergarten and first grade. And a lot of the superintendents are coming to me and saying, we need trainings, we need help because, these kiddos are coming in like literal monsters. They no regulation skills. They can't follow rules. They're violent. They're throwing things at the teachers. They're throwing tantrums. They can't focus or pay attention. We need to give accommodations and IEPs, like
all of them
on a rate. Yes. Like one of the supers told me it was like up 72% from like 5 years ago. And it's like the districts don't have the funding to be able to manage this or the manpower or the skills. And it's like, what in the world is going on? So I've started doing a lot of research. And one of the things I've read, and this is not my area of expertise, so I'm really just spewing out what I've read, is that, when you're going through human development at that age, and this could be ongoing, I don't know, that there's a certain amount of white matter that develops in the brain, and that they're actually seeing MRIs and they're looking at brains, and they're saying that like the white matter is not growing at the rate that it should be growing because the children are missing out on actual human being interactions that they would normally be getting, that they're not getting. The human beings need to interact with other human beings, and that's part of their growth and development. That's actually part of brain growth. We grow cognitively, we grow emotionally. We grow our ability to be able to read and write and understand language, the language part of the brain that develops, emotional regulation, the executive functions, all of that develops from actual like human interaction, like human to human, like actually seeing a face in person as opposed to seeing a face through a screen, seeing facial expressions that young children can't detect facial expression through a screen.
Yeah.
So they're not learning. They don't know how to socialize. They don't know how to regulate themselves. They don't know how to take turns. Parents are working from home and they're sticking iPads in front of their kids to keep them entertained so that they can
watching that happen for years. Yeah.
So that they could just do a meeting and work without having to, and they can save money. I get it. Save money on daycare. Just entertain your kid for a little while so you can do a meeting, but it's actually stunting growth and development. And so aren't we then as adults doing the same thing if all of our interactions, even something as intimate as our own therapy, becomes something that we don't even rely on another human being to do with us? Right? You want to, come up with a marketing scheme for your business? Come up with ideas. Don't just go on ChatGPT and ask it, what do I do? Right? You want to, develop a flyer, right? Do some artwork, be creative. Don't just go on, Canva, whatever, and just like have it created for you. Like there are human beings out there that understand human beings, that are human and want to, present to other humans, and they want to be able to be artistic. We want to see things that are created by other humans. We need to see things that are created by other humans.
And now what's so scary is like it's so hard to tell. Like, is that AI or is that a human?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I literally sent something to my daughter the other day and she was just like,
that's not real.
You're an AI victim. That's what she called me. And it was just like some dumb little thing with like a bunch of little ducklings and like a baby flamingo following it. She's like, that's not a real baby flamingo. You're an idiot. And I was just like, well, it's cute anyway.
I see it in something as stupid as like a gardening group I'm in. Like people are like, oh, where can I get this purple flower? And they're like, that's not real. Like that's AI.
Right.
Like, oh,
right. It's a mind fuck.
But it looks like a real duckling and flamingo and purple flower.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't know.
Right. We don't know what to trust anymore. And so think about that there's so much out there, fake news, fake images, fake stories, fake reels, fake videos, fake baby flamingos and flowers, right? Like, why is somebody going out of their way to make a fake fucking flower? Like, for what purpose does that even serve? Why?
To mindfuck people that are into flowers.
Right, but what does that tell you? People are enjoying mindfucking other people.
Yeah.
That's what's out there. And we have to be careful of that. Right. And AI is learning from us. ChatGPT is learning from us.
Yeah.
Every time we as therapists use ChatGPT to write a note for us, we're teaching it our language.
Yep.
We're teaching
it gets better and better
to take
and
over
harder to determine. And then what's crazy is like you can have ChatGPT write your paper, and then there are like sites that you send your ChatGPT paper to see if it's it's AI or not. Like the teachers are forced to like take every assignment that's turned in and like, is this AI or did the student actually write this?
I know teachers now are going to be like, is this a real paper? Did this student really write this?
But there's a site that'll tell you with 93% accuracy, this was written by AI.
Yeah. Yeah, which is crazy because that means you got all these students going to college online, right? They don't even actually have to show up to a live class. It's all self-taught. And then they have to write a discussion post and a paper every week, which they could totally write through AI. You can now upload your entire textbook to ChatGPT and then say, write me a paper on this topic using quotes from this textbook. Make sure that you include information from chapters 11 and 12.
And these are our future doctors and future attorneys and future
therapists,
pilots and everything.
Yeah. Right. So what do people like, what expertise are we even going to have? Right. Like why have we've come so far into this place of impulsivity, instant gratification, right? So much to the point that we're willing to give up human beings, friends, therapists. right? We can't replace humans, whether it's your lawyer or your doctor or your therapist or your friend or somebody that you want to date. I get it, people. It's easier. AI is not going to argue with you. It's going to tell you what you want to hear. But if all we hear is what we want to hear, then where does our ability to regulate our emotions go? We don't have to regulate anything. Then you have to go out into the real world and be in a real scenario. How are you going to talk about skills and tools?
Yeah, you're
How
not going
are
to be able
you
to function.
going to have the skills and tools to do that? And that's what therapy awards you. When I have a patient that comes in and they are feeling really, really, really uncomfortable with certain feelings, and they can bring that into the room because I've created a safe space for them, and they can be raw and real and have this expression of emotion in front of another human being, and we can co-regulate together, and I can accept them and not judge them. That is a healing that takes place. That is an interaction, a human-to-human interaction that can be replaced by nothing.
Yeah. A bot is not going to be able to do that.
Right. So there's no healing in that. You can't heal trauma with a fake person.
With AI.
No, the relationship is everything. The corrective experience is everything. And so, just to kind of end us on this story, I'm going to try and tell the story without breaking down and crying.
Uh-oh. Are there tissues around?
I don't know. I'm going to do my best. Yeah. Okay. So without giving any details, kid coming in, seeing one of my therapists for about 8 years, a lot of trauma at home with the parents, starts coming to therapy at age, let's say 6 or 7-ish. You got the tissues.
I'm ready.
Okay. Starts coming to therapy around 6 or 7-ish. Now this person is 13-ish. And they are, in this strange crossroads because, some things, and I don't want to give any details because I don't want anyone to know who I'm talking about, but for whatever reason, some of the hairiness that was going on at home has now come to an end because of certain circumstances, which is very traumatic, but a very big relief at the same time. And so through the therapy, through those 7 or 8 years of coming to therapy, the child comes in every week. You can feel it coming. Okay, breathe. Child comes in every week and plays Uno with the therapist. Every week they come in and play Uno, week after week after week after week after week. Uno, 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 Uno.
I'm surprised it went on that long and the parent didn't pull them out and say, oh, you're just playing Uno with my kid.
Yeah, a lot of parents do that. Yep, but no. Uno, 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 Uno. And she would come to me in the beginning for supervision. What the hell am I doing? And I would say corrective experience. You're giving this child
showing
who
up.
Desperately needs it, certainty, predictability, consistency.
A safe space.
Yeah. Just
that container. Yep.
The one thing that the child did not have at home at all. And this is the only place where this child is going to get this. And it's everything. And so every week the kid came in and played Uno. A couple of years into treatment, therapist gets pregnant, goes to go out on maternity leave. She comes to me for supervision right before she goes out on leave, and she's bawling. And she says to me, he asked me who's going to play Uno with him on Mondays. And she's like, now I get it. Right? And so it was very emotional. And she went out on maternity leave and she came back. And he came back into therapy after she was out for whatever it was, 2 months or so.
Did he take a break or did he have someone else playing Uno with him?
He chose to take the break. He didn't want to see somebody else. So he came back in after she came back from maternity leave and went right back to Uno. Uno, 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 Uno. A couple of years later, she has a second child. Again, okay, so we're going to take a break, but you're going to come back. Yes, I'm going to come back. Okay, blah, blah, blah. He comes back, goes right back to the Uno. Shit hits the fan at home with one of the parents. I don't want to say what happened because it's too specific. And he now has to come into therapy and talk about what happened. And it's very traumatic. And he goes to the cabinet and he pulls out the deck of cards and he sits down on the couch and he holds the cards up against his heart and just talks. Doesn't play, just talks. It was about a year ago. And for the last year, every week he comes into therapy. He takes out the deck of Uno and he sits with the deck of Uno in his hands and doesn't play, but holds the deck. So recently, something happened with court and he had an opportunity to advocate for himself and he was really nervous to go. So he says to the therapist, "Can I take the Uno cards with me?" So she comes to me, this was just a few weeks ago, and she tells me, and the two of us are hysterical. I'm like crying. I'm like, I'm not okay. So he takes the Uno cards with him. You know, the advocating for himself goes really well, blah, 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 whatever. So the short of it is he was granted the opportunity to move because of
whatever
circumstances, which is something that the family has wanted for many years. The judge said, okay, the family can now move. So she had to say goodbye to him this week. And
I was going to say, did she give him the Uno?
He took the Uno with him. And she was crying to me the other day and she said, what if he doesn't want to take the Uno with him? I said, then you split the deck. So yeah, you're not getting that with an AI bot.
No, the meaning of that object for him was everything. And a bot is not going to do that.
That deck of cards was this bond, this relationship that gave him sanity and safety, consistency, predictability. This represents for him being heard, being seen, being safe, and having his own place in a world of chaos. And that is everything. And that is where the trauma healing exists. And that is irreplaceable. You cannot replace that with something that is not human.
No.
You also can't replace that with virtual, but that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, my gosh, if that kid was doing was doing bot therapy, was doing AI therapy, oh my gosh.
None of that ever would have happened.
Having gone through what he went through, I don't think he'd be okay today. I really don't. I think he's okay, not because of anything specific he learned in treatment, not because he was taught skills and tools, but because someone showed up for him.
And I'm sure were important, but that was not real work.
That was not the core of it.
Healing.
Yep. The healing of the trauma and the core of it was that relationship that he'll take with him forever and ever and ever and ever. Even if he never sees his therapist again because he's moving away, he will forever have that relationship to take with him as such a corrective experience that probably will be life-saving for him, I think. No question. So,
and the realization that, not everyone is going to disappoint him, and that that people are going to be able to be there.
Yeah, it's so important to know that someone's showing up for you and that you can be seen and that you can talk about hard things and be accepted and be seen even when you're feeling shame and even when you're afraid. Like just being able to have the raw, intimate experience of crying in front of another human being. There's so much healing in that. The transference that he was able to create with her is everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's what the work is. And so if you think you can replace a therapist with ChatGPT or anything of the sort, you don't really understand what therapy is and the power of therapy and what it can actually do. So I guess this is also a plug for go to therapy, everybody.
With a human?
With a human being.
In person.
In person, if you can. If you can't, that's okay.
At Long Island Counseling, if you're local.
At Long Island Counseling, if you live on Long Island. And if you're in New York State and you prefer virtual, if you're in a rural area and you need virtual, we will show up for you. Yeah.
But
All
I think
right.
it was an important explanation because I don't think people really understand what therapy's about.
No, they don't. And that's okay. I mean, there's no shame in not knowing. I know because I'm a therapist and I've been doing it for 30 years. But for people who have not experienced therapy or who are not therapists, not studied it or don't know, a lot of people really don't know what therapy is. My own mother used to say to me all the time, why should I go to therapy? So someone was going to tell me not to be upset about this. And I was like, that is not what therapy is at all. No therapist who knows what they're doing is going to say, Sandy, don't be upset about that, right? That's not what we do. But it's normal for people who are not therapists or have ever experienced therapy to know what therapy is. So that's why we're here.
Yep.
To tell you what therapy is. So I've rambled on for an hour.
And we've made it through without the tissues.
I did okay. I did okay. So any last thoughts, comments?
Nope. Just that I can't wait to go and ask it that question and see what kind of a response.
Oh yeah, that's going to be fun. Everyone at home is going to do it.
They've done it already.
I'd love to hear
tuned out the whole middle of this.
I'd love to hear from you guys. If you can comment or even reach out to us, you can reach out to us through our website, whydopeopledothat.com, or comment if you're watching us on YouTube or wherever. Send us an email. We'd love to hear from you guys what you think. If you've had these experiences, and we'd love to hear what you, if you test out ChatGPT, don't get into it. Just test it out and then stop.
And find
Don't
a real
keep
therapist.
going. If you need a therapist, there's plenty of human beings out there for you. So that's it. That's our spiel. So with that said, people, don't forget to subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, listening on
iHeartRadio,
Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, so that you can be reminded when new episodes come out. Super important. And that's it. I am Stacy.
and I'm Heather.
And we are Why Do People Do That? And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Why Do People Do That was recorded and produced by Press Record Studios.